7th grade. Let's do 1-point perspective country road. Perspective, a technique that they came up with in the Renaissance to make things look three-dimensional on a flat piece of paper. So these are the supplies that you might use today. You'll definitely need a ruler and a pencil. To add color to your picture, you can use crayons or colored pencils if you'd like, markers, or if you found some watercolor paints, you can use some watercolor paints. So let's get started with the drawing. Day 1 would be to draw. I need what they call a horizon line. That is where the sky meets the ground. So what I'm going to do is to fold my piece of paper in half. Okay? After I fold it in half, I need to see the horizon line. So I'm going to separate the sky from the ground. So I'm going to take my ruler and draw I want to make this look like it's a country road that goes to the distance. So somewhere on that line, you need to put a dot. That is where all of the lines meet that show distance. I'd like to show you a photograph of what I mean by perspective. Okay, so this is the sky, this is the ground, and the vanishing point, which is the dot that we made on the horizon line, is where all the roads meet to. Also, the lines to the telephone pole and the lines of the road all meet to the dot. This is the horizon line, so it separates the sky from the ground. So, this is my horizon line. This is my vanishing point. So, let's draw a road. So, you need a ruler, and you're going to draw from the dot off the paper. It's your road. Now, if you would like your road to have a line down the middle of it, you have 2 lines of traffic. So now what I'd like to do is I would like to do the telephone poles. Now, telephone poles stay straight up and down. They don't show distance. But the lines on the telephone poles, they show distance. So I like to make a line lightly where the telephone pole stays inside. So telephone poles are up in the sky, so I'll do one up in the sky and one on the ground. Sky, ground. So your telephone poles are going to be inside this area. So I'm going to take my ruler, keeping it straight with the edge of the paper. So that would be my first telephone pole. Telephone poles are thick, so I'm going to give it some width. 1 telephone pole. Now as they get closer to the dot, the vanishing point, they get closer together. Here, I'll show you. This one to this one. It's farther apart than this one to this one. And they just keep getting closer and closer and closer together. So that's what we're doing. So I'm going to make another one. Straight, keeping a ruler straight with the edge of the paper. Give it some width. Moving in a little closer than the last 2. Care how many telephone poles you have. It's up to you. Now, they're straight up and down, but the lines show distance. So, if you would like to have straight lines on your telephone poles, you just put your ruler and go 1, Some people like to have the T part of the telephone pole. You can draw those. They don't show distance, so you just keep them straight. People like to have their lines on their telephone pole kind of like dip a little bit. So what you do is I just draw one and then I dip it to that point. So you can draw that free-handed, but I'm dipping it so that I know that it stays in the same place. So you have to have a road, you have to have telephone poles. You need to have a fence. So on this side of the road, I'm going to have a fence. The fence is done pretty much the same way as the telephone poles, they're just not as tall. So I need 2 lines for the fence to fit in. So there's one line, the top of the fence, and the bottom of the fence. The fence poles are like the telephone poles, straight up and down. So keeping my ruler straight with the edge of the paper, that's one fence. You can give it some width. They get closer together as they get to the dot. Notice that things are getting smaller as they get to the vanishing point. Okay, so now you can decide to have the wood sides on the fence, or you can do electrical fence wire. So I'm just going to do the wire. So I put my ruler on the vanishing point and I just draw lines. Bob wire pieces. So, telephone pole, road, fence. Let's make a building, like a barn. So, with my ruler, I'm going to make a square. You can go above the horizon line, or you can keep it below the horizon line. But I'm just making a box. Very lightly, I'm going to make an X in the box. Go up, and that's going to be the pitch, the point of my roof. So from that point, I draw to the corners with a ruler. Okay, so all corners go to the dot to show distance, but this corner goes through the barn. You won't see it, and so does this one. It goes through the barn. So you're only going to do this corner, this corner, this corner, back to the dot. Now you might say, Miss J, that's a very, very long barn. So let's cut it off. So this is where you need to keep parallel lines, lines that never meet. So to do the side of the barn, I need to be parallel with this line. To be parallel on the roof, I need to be parallel with this. So I'm just going to put it on that line and then move it out. And then if you want to, you can take your eraser and erase the lines that you don't need. I have had some people tell me, I'd really like to make this like a corral where animals might be. So if you're going to make a fence line that goes even with the horizon line, you don't need to go to the dot. It just doesn't show distance, so it goes straight across. So you could go this way. Fence posts do not show distance. They go straight up and down. So keeping your ruler straight with the edge of the paper, you just add the fence post. And you can add some hills in the background. I just kind of freehand draw some hills. And that would be your first day. Getting your lines straight, drawing your horizon line, drawing your telephone poles, drawing your road and fence, and adding a barn. Day 2 will be color.